Welcome to the TikTok podcast. The clock is always ticking, so let's synchronize our watches and dive in. I'm your host, Callie Brigham, and I'm here to help you make time for what matters. Hey friends, welcome to a Friday bonus episode, and I'm just going to dive right in. As I introduce our special guest today, I want to say that one of the new and favorite byproducts of hosting a podcast is when friends come to you and say, I've got a guest for you. There is somebody you need to know. There's somebody you need to have a conversation with. And when you trust the friend enough, because frankly, she's your pastor's wife, then you say, let me add her. Let me add her. And so a little three-way text formed. A woman named Linda was added to this text. Linda, Stephanie, and I started to just banter back and forth and had a conversation. And, you know, you should always trust your pastor's wife at the end of the day. And I did. And I'm so glad that I did, because today I get to introduce to you my new friend, Linda. Let me tell you just a little bit about Linda before we go for it in our conversation. Linda Seidler is a passionate communicator and leader who encourages her audience, which is now all of you as well, to believe in themselves, to rise up and walk in confidence. Whew, I mean, we could just stop right there. Like, anybody feel like they need to rise up today, believe in themselves, have a little confidence? Well, you're in the right place. Linda and her husband, Tim, are founding and lead pastors of the Experience Church, a perfect place for imperfect people. And if any of you know my church Momentum, you know that we align ourselves in the same way. For over 20 years, Linda has been leveraging her voice to help people take the limits off of themselves and be all that they've been designed to be. She's known for her insightful application of God's word, and Linda carries the message of encouragement and inspiration to her online writing platform at hashtag Linda Seidler Daily. And don't worry, all of this is going to be in the show notes, because I know you're going to want to connect with Linda right after you hear this episode, right in the middle of this episode, because this speaks to the heart of women. Today, we pray for connection as we have this conversation. Linda, I am so thankful that you have carved out some time for us today. Please welcome to the show, Linda Seidler.
I am thrilled to be here today, Callie. I'm telling you, I've been looking forward to this, and I know that you have a heart to help women, and I have a heart to help women as well. And I feel like it's going to be a great conversation today.
Well, let's get started. Let's let the voice begin. Let's let the light shine. Let's let the chains be broken today. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? Like revival. Let's go.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
I think the fun part to start is for everybody to get a little peek into who you are and where you come from, what your story's about. So let's start there, Linda.
Yeah. So story starts with being called into ministry. And my husband and I ended up starting an outreach ministry called the Experience Ministry, where we traveled. My husband was saved later in life, and he had a calling on his life. And so we ended up traveling like a Billy Graham crusade and felt the call to people who are far from Jesus. And about 7 years into it, we were called to plant a church called the Experience Church. And for the past 14 years, well, that's what we've been leading. We started as founding pastors. We're lead pastors at this point. We co-lead together, and we've been through 5 locations. We are currently right now, as you can see, in my new office, in our new building, and it's fantastic. And it's been a wild journey, but I think one of the things that I've learned along this journey is that learning how to manage all of the things has been challenging at times. And as you know, also in your line of work, that just learning how to balance it, learning how to figure it out with family and ministry and jobs and all the people that are listening, all the different things that you're trying to juggle, so to speak, it takes some time to figure it out. And so I hope that our conversation today is helpful to people, because I've really been in a space where I've had to learn, and I'm still learning how to manage it all because it is ever changing, just like our laundry. We're constantly doing laundry, we're constantly changing.
Isn't that a stinker? Like, why
Right?
can't we just I feel like that, or even when remember when you have a newborn baby and you're like, "Oh, I think I got this." Like 3 days in a row, you've got nap time down, you're like, "Yeah, I'm pretty good at this." And all of a sudden, nope, teething or a growth spurt or laundry, dishes,
Yeah.
and learning
So
about life.
I have a solution. Disposable clothes. Somebody.
Yeah.
Disposable clothes. That's all I'm saying. All I'm saying.
Disposable plates and silverware
Everything.
and
Everything.
clothes.
All of it. All of it.
You
Yes.
know that one moment when all the laundry is done and you're like, "Don't anybody wear anything."
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Don't anybody eat a bite of food,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
just everybody
Mm-mm.
stand still for it's a blissful feeling.
We like this perfection right now. Yep.
Oh, do we like perfection? Is that a whole 'nother thing?
That's a
Okay.
whole different episode. Hold it.
That's a
We'll
whole 'nother
revisit that.
episode.
We will revisit that one.
Yeah. I love how you said that we're still learning because I think for some of us, we want to have it all figured out, and we wanna
Mhm.
have it all figured out
Mhm.
now, and we wanna have the
That's
control.
right. Mhm.
And it's just not that's just not how life is.
Mhm.
So, you talked about balance, you talked about learning through that. Are there some opportunities or some experiences that you have had that have allowed you to at least imperfectly balance some of these things? What encouragement do you have for us in maybe some different stages that we're in right now?
Well, let me start by saying this, that and you kind of alluded to it, but great leaders are great learners. So I've held to that for most of my leading. I always want to be ever evolving and ever learning. And that's why I said that about we're still doing the laundry. Well, the things are still coming your way. And you're going to be faced with different situations all the time. And if we think that we have it together in this moment, the next season that comes might look a little different. And so we have to learn. The one thing that I've learned is that I have to keep learning. And if I stay stuck in a situation and think, I've got it all figured out, it's all good right now, that next one that comes, I'm not going to be prepared for that. So I'm always preparing as if a next season is coming. Things that have happened in our past. So, for example, when my girls were little and we first started in ministry, life looked different for me. I wasn't quite as involved as I am now. My management of time was different. But now that all three of my daughters, I have three daughters, they're all out of the house. I'm an empty nester with my husband, and life looks so much different. And my management of time looks different. The things that were priority to me at that time are different now. And so I think it's the sense, Callie, of learning that you can't get stuck in the place where you are right now. You have to continue to think that I need to keep evolving with the situations that are around me. I see so many people get stuck in that, especially leading people that, wow, it's been like this for so long. Why is it like this now? Well, because life changes. And God gives us different situations, and we have an enemy who puts us in different situations. And so we've got all of these different things happening at the same time, in addition to leading whatever you're leading, and things you just have to stay evolving and learning and adapting to what's coming your way. Does that make sense?
It does, and I love
Okay.
the word adapting too.
Mhm. Mhm.
Along those same lines, when I heard you reference really in my mind, the priorities have shifted throughout the years, right? The
Mhm.
priority when the girls were little, the priorities now.
Mhm.
So I hear you in that, and I also know that sometimes when women hear that, there's also guilt that goes along with it, right? So when the
Mhm.
girls were little and that was that parenting, that mothering season
Mhm.
was
Mhm.
intense,
Mhm.
yet you're also trying to be part of a ministry.
Mhm.
How do you balance that priority and guilt management? How does the leader do that? And I wanna put a little pin in a thought.
Sure.
I think some women listening don't think of themselves as leaders, so can we circle back to that and talk about
Mhm.
leadership in that
Mhm.
way? Okay. So, putting a
Yes.
pin in that thought, but
Yes.
how do we balance that priority and guilt situation when we have a lot going on?
So what I had to do for myself is to think, what's the most important thing right now in this moment? So if the most important thing in this moment is for me to be ministering to these people when we're traveling, that's the most important thing. Not that my children are not important. My children are my highest priority. I think that's kind of an understood statement. But there are moments, even when we were doing ministry, that our girls understood, while you're a priority, right now, this particular thing is the thing I have to focus on. It's kind of like the job that we have to do. But when I step away from this, you've got my entire attention, all of my attention, because I don't spend 24 hours a day doing ministry, nor did I spend 24 hours a day only being with my children. So that to me was, I had to alleviate guilt by saying, what is the priority at this moment? This is still important, but I'm prioritizing this right now in order to accomplish the task that God has for me. And when I'm finished with this will be my priority. So I had to learn that type of, I don't like to use the word balance because I don't know if we're ever really balanced, but I guess management is how you like to put that. So the management of that time, and I can honestly say, I didn't deal with the guilt because I was so clear in my priorities at that time. I didn't deal with the guilt. And I would think if my girls were here, they would understand, like they would be able to affirm that they did not feel like I neglected them, because I made sure that when I was with them, I was with them. There wasn't split time. Like if I'm with you and I'm doing a dabbling in ministry over here, I just didn't do that. And now we're very fortunate. All three of our girls come to church. They come to our church. They participate, they serve, they do all of the things. And I'm not sure and please hear me. I want your listeners to hear me. I'm not saying that I'm perfect at it, but for some reason that made sense to me to do it like that. And at that time, it really worked in my family because also my husband was bivocational for a while. So he was working outside of the home. He was also doing ministry. At that time, I was a stay-at-home mom doing ministry. So that worked for me. So I hope that helps someone to say, what is your priority right now? And don't feel guilty about, you're not like neglecting anything. You just, and I think it's good, Callie, for our children to see us be able to do that, because we're giving them an example of what it looks like for them as they go on in life. We can't have the guilt complex of, oh my gosh, I can't be with them right now. No, you couldn't anyway, because you have to go to the store and you're going to visit your mom and you're going to go with friends. So to think that we have to do it 100% of the time with that particular group of people, that might be a little bit misleading to ourselves.
You know, the Bible talks about a double-minded man, right, or
Mm.
woman, and being unstable, and so you think about that you're trying to kind of balance on this rickety platform of being here, being there. When I'm here, I feel bad about being there. When I'm, vice versa. One of my guests, Linda, one time said, look down at your feet." So, of course, we all looked at, and she said, "This is where you are right now. Be here." I
So
love that. Look down at your feet
yeah,
and be here.
yeah,
Another way I thought, and I have heard people, by the way, talk about harmony instead of balance. Maybe that's a good definition too. I almost felt like you're saying there's priority with the big P, and then there's priority with the lowercase p. So priorities never have changed for you of your faith and your family, right? But little priority P was maybe this particular conference you were at.
mhm,
Or right? Is that a way to
correct.
describe it?
It's a great way to put it, yeah, because we know that our submission to God, we know that our priority for our family, those things are the big picture things. That's what we've been designed to do, right? The other things are the roles that we play that God has given us to be able to accomplish the task that He's put inside of us. And so, yeah, I think that's a fantastic way to put that. And those things, our family prayerfully stays in the same context as it always has. And if it changes, it changes as well. But our little p things change again. It kind of goes back to things are changing continuously. And so I love that big P, little p. Yeah,
Well,
that's
see, you never know what's gonna happen
so good.
on a live recording. Okay. You can hashtag we need to hashtag that.
I'm learning. Leaders are learners. I just
Leaders
learned something new.
are
There you
learners.
go.
Leaders are
Good
learners.
point. Yes.
Okay. So we've established that we've got to understand and honor where we are. We're an
Mhm.
example to others in that place that maybe they don't see in another situation. And so,
Mhm.
because of that, we do have the ability to lead. And so, I want to circle back to that
Okay.
and that concept of, are we leading in whatever capacity we're in, even if we're not a pastor, even if we're not the head of a ministry, even if we're not a CEO or a boss? How do we still lead? How do we lead well? What does that look like? I know this is a
Mhm.
passion of yours.
It is. Um, Anyone who's on the earth is leading in some capacity. Anybody. Maybe it's just your little family that you have. Um, Even if no matter where you work, you're leading. And I think the way that I would frame this is God has positioned us to lead in the capacity where we can help other people, first of all, to know more about his son Jesus, right? So if we are leaders in every capacity, that's one of the main things that God has put inside of us. So when I hear women say, I'm not a leader, I'm like, okay, well, tell me what it is that you do in life. And I'm like, everything that you're telling me right now shows that you have leadership potential inside of you, because the first priority is to make sure people know that you're an example of Jesus. And that's leading other people toward his son, toward God's son. So that's the first part of leadership. But the second is, uh, every woman is a leader in some regard. And I think the thing that's hard for me to see with women is when they don't believe that they have the ability or the capacity to be called that title. Um, Leader is just another way to say that I'm capable of doing what God's called me to do. And I'm going to show other people how the way to do it. So I look at my daughters and everything that we did in my home that I did with them, I was the only one that could teach them at that point when they were little. It was my responsibility. A long time ago, God told me that I've given you these children to lead so that they can eventually go out on their own and lead their own families, lead their own lives, lead in their businesses, lead in, whatever that is. So we're always continuously leading if we just can believe that what we're saying is going to help someone to be better at what they do. If we're pointing them in the right direction, that's leadership. Leadership doesn't have to be a big arching administrative flow of, a hierarchy of positions. Leadership is just you're helping someone be better at who they are and who God's called them to be. So everyone has a leadership potential. So anyone who's listening today, the things that we're talking about, you don't have to be a ministry leader. You don't have to be a CEO of a company, while you may be, though. So there's no levels of leadership when it comes to that economy. Leadership levels come in positions of what you're doing in the world, or in ministry, but leadership is just a natural flow of what God's doing inside of you to help other people be better at what they do.
I think what we're doing is honoring that positioning, like you said,
Mhm.
honoring that positioning for women
Mhm.
so that they can do more of it, whatever it is, right?
Yes.
Whether it
Yes.
is more active parenting at
Yes.
home, whether it is more leading a sales team, whether it is
Mhm.
more
Mhm.
ministry,
Right.
that's really where the heart of this is coming from.
Right, right. Because it again, if you're the CEO of a company, if you're in the marketplace, if you're leading a church, if you're leading a ministry, when you boil it all down with all of the titles gone, aren't we pretty much the same? We really are. When you get naked, when you get it all naked, we're naked, we're taking it all off. We're all same at the foot of the cross. So when we look at ourselves at the foot of the cross, and God's called us to leadership, I believe that leadership is a calling from God. And he has positioned us in different places to be able to lead in different capacities. We need all of us. It's not just going to take the people in church, it's the people who love God, who are going out into the marketplace and leading people in that capacity. Again, I think the end goal is always to bring more people to Jesus. And that's just how I look at it. No matter where I am, whether I'm in the grocery store, I'm leading people closer to Jesus just by my actions. I'm not going to treat the sales clerk like she made a mistake on my order and some people would get upset and angry or have to wait in line for 20 minutes. How am I leading them to understand that I'm not a jerk, that I love Jesus, and I'm pointing you back to the one that I love, and I just want to be kind to you today. I look at leadership. I know, even though I lead in a high capacity in my church as a lead pastor, we have a lot of people under us, but I'm looking at the simple everyday things in leadership too. It's not just as important, more important to do this than it is to do this, because both of those things are in my life. And I would say more of it is in my life here than it is here, because we're leading everyday lives. So I think the women that are listening that are not in a positional leadership capacity, you're still leading. And you got to believe that about yourself. And you have to understand that you have this value inside of you that gives you the right and the authority to be able to lead people, even when you don't realize you're leading them.
So, Linda, I feel like we probably have two different camps here. We've got two different kinds of women that are listening, and a couple guys.
Okay. Yay.
Shout out to the guys,
Shout
but
out.
mostly women. We've got the women that are really resonating with this. They're like, I feel like I know that I'm a leader. Maybe I was born that way. Maybe I've had experience. Maybe it's been a long time, but like that,
Yeah.
I resonate with that. Then we have women that say, gosh, this is a new concept for me. I
Yeah.
don't know that I
Yeah.
see myself in that way. What either next step or encouragement do we have for either one? Because the women, let's start with the women who are leaning more towards, thank you for seeing me. I am a leader. I am strong. What is encouragement, or what advice do you give that woman?
Let's talk about the concept of imposter syndrome, first of all. So, the women who may be in that arena, who are thinking, I am not, gosh, how do I say it? I'm not worthy of leadership. I'm not capable of leadership. I think there's an element of imposter syndrome in that. And let me explain what that means. It's just a big fancy word to say that if I pretend like I'm doing that, I'm not really that person, but I'm going to try to pretend to be like that person, but I'm not authentically that person. And you get into this big mindset in your head that that's not really who you are. Or if you say that's who you are, people are not going to believe you, because you don't have the credentials, you don't have the abilities, you don't have the letters behind your name. And I would say to that, no, that's just not true. The letters behind your name give you the ability to say that I've learned this particular way of doing things. I have a degree behind my name. I have my Bachelor of Arts degree in education. Do I use that? I could. It's okay if I do, but if I don't, that's okay too. People can still know me without my Bachelor of Arts degree. And so I think what I would say to the woman who doesn't feel that qualification, yes, you are perfectly capable. God God has designed you uniquely and wonderfully in a way that he's not designed anyone else. What a shame it would be if you didn't use what God has given you, because there is someone who needs to hear what you have to say, that only you can resonate. The words that you have resonate only with those people. I can't reach everyone. Callie, you can't reach everyone. Your listeners can't reach everyone, but we can reach someone. And if we don't believe in ourselves enough to be able to use our voices and believe, again, that we have leadership capability, what a shame for those people who can't hear that won't ever get to hear that from you or see it. Maybe you're a writer. Maybe you're an artist and you're creative. Maybe you're a violinist. Maybe you have musical abilities. Whatever that is, it doesn't have to just be in speaking and the leadership as you think about it, but all of the things that the big mosaic that God has created, you're a piece of the puzzle that's in that. And what a shame if that was plucked out and you weren't able to use that. So don't deny that you have the leadership capabilities. Just begin to believe that you can start to use those. Just start with something, whatever that is. Start with just take the first step and see how it goes. But I think you're onto something there, Callie. I think that that's an audience of a lot of women right now that just don't have that belief in themselves.
So just start, write the first page, pull out the
Mhm.
instrument, look down at your feet, like we said, and whose feet are next to yours? Is it the person next to you in the coffee shop? Is it
Mhm.
the younger woman that needs some mentorship and needs to
Yeah.
go to coffee and told, like, "You're normal, it's okay."
Yes.
What does that look like? Just start. Wouldn't that be amazing if we're starting a we said revival at the beginning of this. We're starting a revival of leaders
And a
today.
revolution. A
A
revolution.
revolution.
Revolution. Yeah, and I love what you said. Start in the coffee shop. Go out to lunch with a girlfriend. Meet in the park with your kids. Go to a conference together. Like what does that look like for you? Be a part of a group of women who, you guys are running every day, whatever that looks like for you. But start somewhere and begin to use your voice in a capacity again that's uniquely made for you. I'm telling you, when you start to do that, something does start to change inside of you. When you start to feel and you hear someone say, "Man, thanks for calling me. I really needed that call today. I was kind of down," or "Thanks for praying for me. I needed that." You'll start to feel the evidence of God inside of you as you begin to do those things, because that's what God's called us to do. That's so good, Kelly. I love those examples.
Well, Linda, I love this too because what I've said repeatedly for the last 6 months is that when it comes to our time, it's really not about our time. It's about our energy and our emotions and our feeling of being on purpose and on mission. And when we are, the other things are much clearer. I think it's
Yes.
when we're not, we're floundering, we're feeling guilty, we're, all those things too. So we've spoken to the woman who just needs to start. What about the woman who is like, "You know what? I love leadership, but sometimes I'm worried that maybe I should shrink down. Maybe am I too much of a
Mm.
leader? Like, bossy girls aren't, isn't what's popular. Like, maybe I should tone it down a little bit."
Those are the ones I like to speak to even more than anything, because we all want to shrink back to make someone else look bigger, or we shrink back so that we don't stand out, or we shrink back because we're afraid of what people say, or we shrink back because we don't want to sound too bossy or too intelligent. And all of those things, again, I go back to the point of what we said earlier, which is the giftings that God has put inside of you need to shine for other people to see. And our shrinking back does not do anyone else any good. The Bible says this, that our light needs to shine. Don't put a bushel over the light, because it needs to be like a city on a hill that's shining bright for people to see. I can't tell you, that's been one of the hardest things for me, because I was a bossy young girl and I was always told I was bossy, and I always looked at that as negatively. And it's taken some years, really a lot of years, to understand it. And that what I do for my job, which is, and my calling, which is a pastor, when I first started, there were very few female pastors that I could look to. And it was super tough for me, because I know my personality. I know what God's called me to do. And I've always been fairly confident in that, until people started to come against me. And it was really hard for me to manage. Should I, or should I shrink back? And I have shrunk back at times. And every time I shrink back, it's been the wrong thing to do. And I've known that verbally, and I know that visually, and I know what God's put in my heart about it. But it is tough to be like, I think I would say this to someone: it's tough to be the one person who's doing something that only you can do. Because when you do something of significance, that's when the critics begin to come. And when critics come, the enemy wants us to shrink back because we're shining a little too bright. We're really little bit too big for our britches. We think we know it all. And those are all things that have come in my mind. And I've had to fight that off, to say, no, no, I'm not bigger than anything. I'm just doing the job that I've been called to do. And so I would encourage the person that's feeling right now that you need to shrink back, is to remind yourself again. I have to reiterate what we said, which is, somebody needs what you have. Again, the giftings have been deposited inside of you, not just for you. If they're only remaining inside of you, what good have the gifts been? And again, the Bible talks about talents, people given different talents, and people bury those. And I look at that as a visual thing for us. We bury our giftings. I wish I had the scripture reference, but I don't. But we bury our giftings. And man, I would venture to say the people that have buried their giftings might be the ones who are having the toughest time, because you know that you want to use those, and you know that you've been entrusted with those. So I don't even know how else to say except for don't shrink back. Like, take authority over that and believe in it. And again, it's always just one step, Callie. There doesn't have to be this. You can see the beginning, you could be at the beginning and see the vision for the end of wherever you think you should be. But we never jump from A to Z. And God has not planned us to do that. If we ended up going from A to Z, we would fail because we're not prepared. Every step that the process is in place gets a little stronger, a little bit more confident in us using our giftings. And the next thing you know, you're proceeding. God's continuing to pull you along till finally you're at Z. But the only way you got there was taking the step from A to B. So it's beginning and starting and believing and understanding that you can have the confidence. It's okay to be confident. It's okay to be confident. You don't have to feel bad about doing something good.
I think the best part about what you just said, I mean, there's so many best parts. But one of the most significant things of what you just said is that when we do that, we unknowingly give permission for the next woman to do that too.
Mm.
It's a ripple effect. It's not just so if you're
Mhm.
feeling like that's selfish of me, it's actually selfish of you not to, because you have no idea whether it is your own daughter in your home, like I pray it
Mhm.
is for my 13-year-old, or
Yes.
whether it is the neighbor, or whether it's your coworker, or whether
Mhm.
you might need to be the first person
Mhm.
to just do the thing and to
Yes.
be confident and be brave and do that, because she might need you. So any women out there that are feeling like it's not about me. Yeah, it's not actually at the end of the day. And Linda, that's what you've done for us today is because of how you were wired, which God did not make a mistake on, you have now infused in us that we too can take that step because you've done it. You had to do it first, and now we can do it too.
Mhm. Mhm. And it's not always easy to be that person, but man, when you do it, you realize you are affecting other people. People are watching you whether you realize it or not. That's the one thing I have learned. So you might as well do it to the best of your ability and show them that these things are possible. Because when those things are possible for someone, I did a message not too long ago about comparison. And typically we look at comparison as a negative thing. And what I'm learning is that comparison doesn't have to be negative. And here's why. If you use comparison in such a way to say, well, if she can do it, then maybe I can do it too. It's not if she can do it, oh, then what's wrong with me? I don't look at it like that anymore. Do you know how many people that I listen to and that I watch and I glean from and I think, thank you, Jesus, that they've come on the scene, that they can help me and they don't even know they're helping me. Let's use comparison as a good thing as opposed to a negative thing. Compare yourself all the women and say, okay, right now, maybe I'm not lacking a little bit, but again, if she can do it, I can do it too. Or if she can do that, maybe I can take something, maybe not exactly the same, but do something that's unique to me, but it's possible. It is possible. There's possibilities in being able to do the thing. I think we limit ourselves by saying that we're not capable and we're not worthy and we're not to the caliber of maybe that person. But again, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We have to remember we see the beautiful picture on the outside, right? We don't know what's happening behind that door. Everyone's dealing with something. I'll guarantee it. There's not a person, I would venture to say this is true. 100% of women struggle with some form of this in one way or another. Do you agree with that?
I do. I
I
do.
do. I mean, I think there are times where it's not as bad as other times, But I think deep down, Kelly, I think we all have a sense of something that, whether it was my hair today because I didn't realize we were on video. So I'm like, okay, do I
As I
go?
have literally my hair slicked back and nothingness. I'm like, "Linda, your hair looks amazing. Are you kidding?"
I wouldn't have
There we
worn
go, right away. Yeah,
I wouldn't have worn a white shirt with a pale
yeah,
wall. I mean, but the point is, okay, you got to own it. At that point,
yeah,
you just got to go with it, and why not? And have fun doing it. I
and
don't know.
have
But
fun doing it.
I'm trying in my life right now with all the seriousness that we have everywhere. Sometimes we just have to think a little bit light about some things and not take it so seriously. It's okay. Sometimes it's just okay.
It is okay.
It's
It's
just
better
okay.
than okay. It's
Yeah.
better than okay, and
Yeah.
I have a feeling that because of who you be, Linda, and what you shared today, people are gonna want to know how they can continue to learn from you and connect with you. As I mentioned, this is gonna be in the show notes, but tell us your hashtag, spell it out for everybody so they
Yes.
make sure they can find it. They can follow you on social, they can connect with your church if they're interested. So, but
Yes.
tell us about the hashtag where we can follow you.
Absolutely. It's Linda, Linda, and my last name, Seidler, Seidler. All my platforms, Instagram, Facebook, anywhere that there's a platform, that's who I am. Threads, all of the places.
Perfect.
Yes.
So, Linda, I always have a gift for my guests. It's a pretend gift, but it is the gift of a bonus hour of time.
Mm,
If you had this extra little hour that didn't have to be pulled out of anywhere else, what would you do with your bonus hour?
it's so practical. I can't even imagine me saying this, but it would be spending that hour with my immediate family. And I say that because of the busyness of my life and the times that uh, and I'm not kidding when I say this, the times that are the most special to me are the times that I get to sit at my house, my kids come over, they bring my new grandchildren, and we hang out and we do nothing but just hang out. I've learned with my kids, I always knew that they would go off, but the thing that I prayed is that when they left, that they would always want to come home. And so every week, someone's at my house. I don't ask them to come, they just show up. And so when I leave here today, I'm hustling home. My mother-in-law's coming over. We're going to hang out. It's precious to me. Time is short. And if I had an extra hour, I would do the thing that I love the most, and that's spend time with them. So again, I know it kind of sounds cliche, but there's no other place I'd rather go, or no other people, or nothing that I would do. I've done a lot of stuff in my life already up to this point. I've been places speaking. I've done all the things. It's been fantastic. I love it when I'm doing it. Again, I love it. But the extra hour, I wouldn't want to be on a stage with thousands of people. I would rather be at home with my 3 girls, my kids, and my husband. So I'm just kind of a practical girl at heart from West Virginia. Our church is in Ohio, West Virginia. But I value that so much. So I hope that gives someone the ability to see that simple is okay.
It is. And usually I say afterwards, well, I hope and pray that you will carve that out this week, but it sounds like you're already intentionally doing that and that you'll continue to. So it is a bonus, even if it's not an actual extra hour. That's what you're choosing to do with your time. And thank you for choosing to spend some time with us today, Linda. This has been a valuable, invaluable conversation. I have a page of notes. I've got a lot of things to think about, some steps to take, and I know our listeners do too. So I just want to thank you for being here with us.
Thank you so much. I enjoyed every single minute. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And thank you all for listening. We'll be back soon, and God bless you. Thank you for joining me on the TikTok podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a 5-star review. Your feedback fuels our mission to help you master your time. Set your alarm for our next episode, and until then, make every moment count.